It's a quick fix. Hello everyone, welcome back to Fix the Family. My name is Raylan Alamo and we are bringing you truth without compromise for the family. Welcome back. A little bit of a quick fix today, our blog edition on this October the 8th, 2015. Wanted to go over a little bit, a little piece from our blog entry that we had a couple of weeks ago, and just elaborate on that a little bit. If you haven't been to the blog at fixthefamily.com, just click on that blog tab, and that's going to give you the full version of what I'm going to talk about. But the priest here at the Latin Mass Chapel had given us a homily about what is the requirements of a church building, and then quickly rolled that over into and related that to what would be in our domestic church in our home. Well, those requirements of a church building, a Catholic church building, would be a pulpit, an altar, and a confessional. And he related those two things in our homes, our domestic church. And the blog entry out there on fixthefamily.com is called "The Priest of the Domestic Church, Who is the Father." The Father is in the home is the priest of that domestic church. So I just want to cover one of those items that are required in a church building and how he correlated that into our homes, and that would be that of the confessional. So he said what would represent the confessional in the home is the submitting to authority, the having to answer for things that that are expected of everyone in the home. And as priest, the father stands in that position of being that one who stands in authority and has to be obeyed by everyone else in the home. So what we are supposed to do as fathers is, when something isn't done right or isn't accomplished that was expected to be, or whatever the rules are that we have in our home, or the tasks that need to be accomplished, we need to follow up on that and make sure those things are done. And if they are not done, then we need to get answers, or we need to enforce punishments or whatever disciplines go along with that. And that's for everyone in the home. Okay, and so we, in cases of even our own wives, if things aren't done right, we need to question that and get some answers and see how we can resolve those things. Because if there are rules there in a home, then if they are important rules and they're not obeyed, then what kind of example is that setting for the kids, to see that there's not a respect for authority and an obedience to authority? Understand, our children are always being trained by our actions. Okay, so that makes us need to be sure that we don't put in frivolous rules or self-serving rules into our homes. Because if there's a rule, then there has to be a reason for it, a good reason for it, in order that it has to be obeyed. Okay, and that isn't vice versa. It doesn't work to where it's like, well, the wife needs to check up on the husband to make sure he does. He goes to the priest in the confessional. That's the authority that he is subject to. So we see that, as St. Augustine calls that, order of love, down from God, the priest, down into the family, the father, mother, and to the children. Okay, so I give a little example out there on the website of something that happened, and it's good for discussion of an encounter I had. I was at a grocery store over in Baton Rouge and I was shopping in a particular part of the store with my 17-year-old son. And I noticed that it was game day. So they had a little family with two little boys, and they were dressed in their garb for the day. They're excited about the game coming up, in their LSU attire. And anyway, I heard just one of the little kids just kind of pop off and say, "Got to make a decision." And I thought that was kind of cute. It's a kind of grown-up thing for a little kid like that to say, maybe 8 or 6 years old. Well, and then my 17-year-old son just kind of grumbled. He says, "Boy, that's a pretty miserable life right there." And I said, "Well, what you mean? Did I miss something?" He says, "Yeah, well, the man's wife told the little kid that his daddy needed to make a decision. Apparently she had to go, and she was ready to go. And not only that, but she related it through the little boy, and the little boy says, 'Daddy, you got to make a decision.' about whatever purchase you want to make, because she was ready to go. Now, again, I don't know all the circumstances there, and I don't know about. I'm not going to try to. It would be inappropriate to pass judgment on those people's relationship. But let's just take that as an example and examine it. If that and you probably know, I know of situations where that is pretty much the way the wife in the home is all the time toward her husband. And as my son said, that's a pretty miserable life, I can imagine. And I know couples like that. So, is that proper? Is that the way that God ordered the family? Because what could she have done in that situation? If she really had to leave, she had somebody waiting for her, or she was going to meet someone at home or something, or she had a meeting to be at. Maybe she could have said, honey, how much longer do you think you're going to be? Because remember, we have this such and such going on. Or, what my wife does whenever I do that, what she does? She says, oh, good, I get to go shopping in another part of the store if it's not something that she's interested in right there that I'm looking at. So that's pretty much the way she handles it. And they had the little kids with them. Maybe they were getting cranky or whatever. It all depends, and we just need to look at those situations. But a very different way she could have handled that. Totally inappropriate, and it might have been a weak moment. We, again, can't judge. But if that's the way it is all the time, that mother there is sowing seeds of dissension. Not only is she's sinning in herself, she's sowing seeds of dissension in her own children. And that's going to be difficult to recover from. Now, and I put that out there, and inevitably, when I talk about this, about submission, because as St. Paul says in Ephesians 5:22, wives be submissive to your husbands, and it goes on from there. And yes, it does say husbands love your wife as Christ loves the church, but it doesn't say that it's interchangeable, or that one is a prerequisite of the other. But inevitably, when I talk about this, someone brings up domestic violence. Now, I'm not sure, and this is kind of a precursor to my next blog article, is I'm not sure why people bring that up or what the correlation is. It's like, are we saying that if a wife is submissive, that's going to make her husband be abusive? For one, the lowest of the low, weakest men that would be, physically abusive, or abusive in any way to a woman, the weaker of the gender, that's a pretty low human being. I mean, hopefully he's something wrong in his mind, but that's it's really not not a good person. So definitely not anything that has anything to do with that particular discussion. I'm not sure why that's being brought up. Are we saying that being submissive is going to provoke a man to be abusive? And even if it isn't that type of mentally depraved man, what's going to be more apt for him to be abusive? Is it going to be if she is cooperative, or if she's being like if she is being very really abusive to him, as the lady was in the store. So I'm not sure what it is about that, but most men, that's a rare man, or not that it's rare, but that's the exception. Even if it is kind of say a big problem, it's still the vast exception of men. What most men are going to do, if their wife is that way, if their wife is one that's always difficult or is domineering or verbally abusive to him, what most men are going to do? And because look, today's men, they're pretty mild. We're probably the mildest of men that ever been on the face of the earth today. And there's various theories about that, but many of them have been brought up by women, by single mothers, and don't have a male role model, and many of them, there's research out there about boys that are conceived while the mom's on contraception, not having testosterone, very low levels of testosterone, all kind of things, or maybe men that have had a vasectomy, So I mean, all kind of theories out there. It's the reason why men are so mild. But anyway, most men either they're gonna leave if a woman's like that to them, or if they stay, the honorable men that are gonna honor their vows of marriage, if they stay, they are going to be their heart is going to be somewhere else. they are going to be invested into something outside of the home if their wife is not loving toward them. I mean, all St. Paul is saying is, be cooperative, just do what he says, kind of thing. So what happens? Men dive into either sports or into their profession, into their careers, and into making money, all sorts of things. Not to mention those of the evil things of pornography or all sorts of things. Those are gonna all these things we see of men being diverted away because their wives aren't being cooperative and loving and submissive to them. So anyway, that's a little bit of a precursor there. But again, the confessional in the home, the husband is the one. There's no co-leadership. That doesn't exist. I mean, if someone thinks that that's happening in the home, the wife is the one who is the head of that house. But the authority in the home God gives that to Christ Himself, gives that to the husband, to the father of the home, and the authority is supposed to be exercised through him. So a little bit of a quick fix for you there today. Come back and see us next time. My name is Raylan Alamon. God bless you.